Hello everyone, welcome to Bruno's MMA show. I am here today with Coach Tony Blauer. Hello Tony.
Hey, Bruno, how you doing?
Good, good, thank you. And you?
Very good.
Thanks. So, I've listened to a few interviews you've done, and obviously I do realize you do have to repeat yourself a little bit every time, but basically, if you had to tell viewers what it is that you do, I guess the oversimplification would be self-defense coach, but how would you describe it?
Wow. So you're coming in hot, man.
Ah,
Yeah. What do I do? So yeah, I'm a self-defense coach, but it's much deeper than that. Over a course of 43 years studying violence, fear, and aggression, I have, and I'm just going to kind of like do the Reader's Digest version of what happened. But during that course of decades and decades of researching victims of violence and victors, I intuitively kind of reverse engineered a protocol that anybody can apply to make themselves safer, whether they're a 10th degree black belt or a beginner. And what I mean by that, it might sound like an outlandish statement, but I discovered and started researching deeply the psychology of fear, the neuroscience of fear back in the 80s, before there was, flow state research, before there was information on deep practice and brain-based training. And what's amazing is now, decades later, when I'm reading all this contemporary research, it explains what I was doing in the 80s intuitively. I didn't have all the sexy language. I didn't know how to say, oh, this drill will help myelinate the neurotransmitter, and the neurons that fire together will wire together. I would create these force-on-force encounters we called ballistic microfights, originally the panic attack drills. So back literally in 1980, I started doing scenarios. So this is, over 40 years that I've been focused on the scenario training. As a result of that, I created the world's first impact reduction suit called High Gear to do force-on-force training. The exploration of force-on-force training gave birth to the whole S.P.E.A.R system, right? And so for your listeners who don't know what S.P.E.A.R is, S.P.E.A.R is an acronym, S.P.E.A.R, for Spontaneous Protection Enabling Accelerated Response. It's the study of the startle flinch response. That's a hardwired reflex in every human. And it's the study of how, when a stimulus gets introduced too quickly, it triggers a startle flinch where our hands come up to protect our head. And I figured out a way through a bunch of interesting classical conditioning drills to do drills that, again, I didn't have the language in the 80s, but you do these drills over and over again, and what's happening is you're myelinating the neurotransmitter, that when we go from a flinch, instead of continuing to turn away from the danger, that our hands immediately drive towards the threat, and we deploy what I've lovingly coined the organic airbag, the body's natural airbag to push away danger. It's much more sophisticated than that. We're the only system in the world that's been vetted by medical doctors, scientists on 3 different continents. Most of my work is done at very high level with government agencies. So, it's funny, and I say this, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole too deep, but there's a lot of martial artists and self-defense people that criticize, oh, Blauer's this, he's never fought in the octagon, what's he done? He thinks he invented physiology. And you get all that crap out there. They don't realize that, I'm 60 years old, man, and I am still training and teaching, and our system is incorporated at the highest level in different countries. Prison services, SWAT teams, military units, tier 1 units, counter-terrorist groups. So we have a whole scope of stuff, from gunfighting programs to multiple assailant programs. The stuff and why I like getting on a show like yours is, at my core, at my heart, I'm a martial artist. At my core, I'm a 13-year-old kid who discovered Bruce Lee and fell in love with martial arts and wanted to be able to protect myself, my sister, my family, my girlfriend, my wife, my kids, and fell in love with that process. And my dream, I remember when I was 15, my mom said to me, I was sitting on the floor trying to do the splits, looking at Bruce Lee magazines, and my mom says to me, so, what are you going to study in school? What's your focus? What are you going to do? And I was like, oh, I'm going to be a famous martial artist like Bruce Lee, Mom. And she pat me on the head and she said, okay, dear, we'll talk about this when you're older.
Yeah.
And here I am, I'm a lot older. But so I teach self-defense, but from a behavioral perspective, from a holistic perspective. And the 13 years of scenario-based training, I say 13 years because 1980, a student of mine lost a fight in a significant way. I was 20 years old. And when he described what happened, I went, holy shit, we teach self-defense wrong. And I said, we collectively, like the world teaches self-defense wrong. Decades later, I can explain, well, what we were doing back then is block-based training, how to get out of a headlock, how to get out of a lapel grab. Let's spar, and that block-based training doesn't prepare you for the emotional, psychological assault. So you could be an amazing grappler, and now, you find out that, you made it to the finals, and you're now, instead of being in this room or this room, you're now in the main auditorium at the sports center. And instead of there being like 50 people on the sidelines, there's 1,500 people. And I know people who have lost emotional control of themselves because of the crowd, because of the distraction. It had nothing to do with their skill set. So, when I coach athletes and when I coach coaches, and I should slip in here that I've got clients who are professional psychologists, and I coach them on how to teach my research on fear to their clients, right? It cascades. I teach coaches who have athletes, right? And of course, I do coaching directly. But the idea is I tell people, and this is something I discovered in the 80s, running my scenarios, that the people who manage their fear manage to fight. The people who manage their fear manage to fight. And that was so significant because, on game day, you're not a different athlete. And this is what I tell people is like, because I get asked this, I just did a big podcast last week for Black Belt Magazine. And one of the questions was, we're talking about like tournament fighters and world-class athletes who fail to perform at their potential. And I go like their ability to side kick or do a spinning hook kick or grapple or strike, that skill set travels with them. They had that skill set at the weigh-in on Thursday or Friday.
Yeah.
What happened Saturday night? At that point, it's all mental. And this is why, a big part of my company now, if you go, we just launched a new website called Blauer Training Systems. And we've got like a page for high gear, for scenario training. So whether you're Krav Maga, Tai Chi, you want a pressure test, does this work? I don't care what spectrum, MMA, put the gear on and evaluate it with margins for error, because you don't want to find out in the real violent encounter that you don't have the aerobic capacity, or that cool move that you've been practicing doesn't work when there's emotional psychological interference. And this is the things that I always tell people, don't hate me, hate the bad guy. It's the don't shoot the messenger thing. I created the gear so that you could do the experiment. I'm hands off at that point. But we also created a scenario system. We also created, again, like this organic airbag. I don't care what level you're at. And the metaphor I use is if you don't understand the startle flinch and how to convert it, then you could be 10 years grappling professional fighter. And that's like having, and the metaphor I use is your brain that understands moves and counters and strategies is like a navigation system or a map in a car. Your body, your physique, is your car. Fast you can go, how hard you can go. Are you a Prius or are you a Ford Raptor, right? Or you're a Toyota Camry, or are you a H2 Hummer, right? What type of your Lamborghini? What are you? So you might have somebody who's like an amateur boxer and he trains like he's a Ferrari or Lamborghini. It's all speed and stay away. Then you got somebody like you look really stocky and thick as a grappler, like I would imagine you like getting low and boom, taking someone down and getting on top of them. And I know you wanted to say something there, but I just want to finish this visual. You got me fired up here, man. Is in that moment, that skill set is there, but if somebody surprises you, and I'm not talking about in a match. You can get surprised in a match, and
I get it because
right?
I really get it. You're talking about, you're walking, someone gets on top of you suddenly. Like no,
Yeah,
no prep time, no sizing the dude, no.
this
And I
is it.
really get it. Yeah.
Yeah, this is what I tell people, man. I tell people when you compete, when you even when you spar, even when you decide I'm going to Taekwondo class tonight, it's Wednesday night, we're sparring. There's consent because you showed up. There's
Yeah.
preparation because you showed up, and there's awareness. When you have consent, preparation, and awareness, you have a fighting chance,
Yeah.
right? But you're at the ATM machine, and you turn around, you're putting your money in your pocket, and you turn around, and there's a guy there, boom, and sucker punches you.
There you go. Hmm.
It doesn't, at that point, you were surprised, or you turn around, there's two, three people there. You know, I trained a guy, he won, I think he won a world jiu-jitsu at some point. He's been training jiu-jitsu for years. High level, Rob Finlayson. He's out of Canada as well.
Yeah.
But he does it out of love for jiu-jitsu. He's a very, very serious musician, but that's not even his main business. He's a real artist, right? Jiu-jitsu, music. He writes. He's produced albums, but he's in the construction business. Really smart guy. And he came to a seminar I did in Calgary 20 years ago. And I'm explaining this stuff to people. And like everybody, he's like a jiu-jitsu guy there who heard about me in the magazines. I was in Black Belt, Inside Karate, Inside Kung Fu, you know, all the magazines. So who's this guy? And he's like, you know, at the seminar like this, and I'm doing the drills like everyone else when they first meet me. Who is this guy? You remember in the original Roadhouse, I thought he'd be taller. And and what your brain is doing when you're listening to this talk, and a bunch of people here are doing the same thing. They're going, this is full of shit. This guy's bullshit. I'll check him out. Oh, who the fuck's Tony Blauer? Blah, you know, like he does this. He's there, but he's there. He's got an open mind enough to invest in the seminar and decide for himself. Literally, and if you know him or talk to him, you can get him on your show and talk the story. I don't.
What's his name? What's his name again?
It's Rob Finlayson.
Okay.
But again, nobody knows him. He's not like a high profile martial artist, but he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and
If you say he's interesting to talk to, that's already enough for me. Go ahead.
I mean, I don't know if he will. I don't know that he's ever even done one. But I mentioned it like
pressure him by saying that you really wanted him to come over.
Yeah. But here's the whole point of the story.
Yeah.
He does the seminar, and then literally, I can't remember now because it's like 18, 19, 20 years ago when it happened. Maybe 6 months or 1 month or a few months after, he gets held up at an ATM at knife point.
Yeah.
And he got grabbed from behind where the guy had the knife at his neck. And I happened to, in the seminar, show him, do counters for that. Because when I do a seminar, like if I say it's 3 hours, it's 5 hours.
Yeah.
I tell people, guys, if I'm having fun with you and you're engaging, I'm not fucking leaving. Let's train. You know, I did a 90-minute Zoom seminar on Saturday for, I've got a garage gym thing where I teach out of, I'm in my garage gym, as people can see here. It was scheduled for 90 minutes. We did 3 hours and 15 minutes. My battery and my camera died. I had to switch to the laptop. You know, I was like, oh shit, I forgot to plug it in. I mean, I just go if I'm having fun and the group's engaged. But here's the point. One of the drills I did, I said, look, you get attacked from behind, and the guy's got the knife here. Hey, give me your wallet, do this, and he's behind you, holding you that. I said, let me show you some cool moves, all inspired by the start of flinch and understanding how to reverse engineer scenario-based training. Anyone listening to this, two things I want to say. You didn't start to become a competitor in martial arts. Anyone who starts martial arts as a youngster wants to be able to defend themselves.
Thank you. That's something that, you know, that's really something I wanted to bring up with you. Thank you for saying that. And you beat me to it. I really wanted to bring it up. We
can circle back on that, because at the end of the day, and what that was part two of what I wanted to say, is any conscientious professional instructor of any type of martial arts should either be saying to their student, I love what I teach. I'm on my path to mastery, but I question the efficacy of this in a real violent encounter.
Yes.
Continue to train with me, but explore this, explore this. The problem I have is a lot of people just say, yes, of course this works in self-defense. Well, everything works in a demo, right? But the reality is, and this is why we work so much with law enforcement, because our stuff works. If our stuff didn't work, you know, after a couple of years peddling my goods, you know, in the 90s, people would have said, this is garbage, get out of here, right? But here we are. So I encourage all of you, if you love your Taekwondo, you love your Jiu-Jitsu, you love your boxing, you're like, and here's the thing. There's an article I may release soon, but there's a few very high-profile world-class fighters that have been murdered trying to defend themselves or protect other people. A couple of very famous stories out of Brazil, very world-class jiu-jitsu guys trying to do gun disarms on people during a robbery that got killed. Alex Gong, world-class Thai boxer, got shot chasing down a guy in a hit-and-run collision. And here's the thing is, like, if Alex kicked you or me in the head, we'd be unconscious, have a concussion, maybe die, right? So when I make these statements, please, 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 I'm begging everyone who's listening, I'm not criticizing the athlete. I'm not criticizing the person who invented the style. I'm not criticizing the system. Everything works in a demo. Here's what the example I tell is that if you buy a toolbox, the hammer works, the screwdriver works, the level works.
Yeah.
But if you don't know how to use them, then they're only as good as you picking them up and, oh shit. And so if I ask you to solve a problem as a carpenter, but you don't know how to use an awl and you don't know how to sand and you're gonna make a mess of it. And so sometimes if we don't understand the neuroscience of fear, if we don't understand how a scenario unfolds, and the first place that we are impacted, the first place that we are hit in a violent encounter is if I'm here like this and I go, hey, Bruno, wham, and I step across you and I punch you. If I said to you, what would you do if a guy punched you in the face? You go, well, I bob and weave, I parry. Right? But these are all the cognitive answers. They're all correct answers.
You know, it's really interesting because that's the thing, and what you're telling me, that's what I really wanted to talk to you, because the thing is, I did start martial arts for self-defense purposes, and I make no bones about it, but now it's like this taboo thing to say in martial arts these days, because it's almost like there's been so much stuff that people were learning back in the day that didn't really translate to self-defense, and now people are almost like, oh, I do it for the love of the sport. And that's fine. But then I realized there's hypocrisy there. There's a real hypocrisy, because then when you talk to these people training out over some time, you realize that's not true at all. It's almost like this thing that now when you say like you train for self-defense, it's almost mocked. You know, like it's kind of like, no, for example, I knew a guy and he loved Muay Thai. And he was like, just do it for the sport. When people say, what if you fall down? Doesn't matter. In my sport, you get up after, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And we went out for drinks one time. And what happened was this idiot got in his face. Nothing happened of it. You know, we just walked away. But then for the rest of the night, he was really stuck in his mind on, would it have worked? Like, could I have kicked him in the head there if I need to? You know, like, so it was really in his mind. It was really stuck there. I have plenty of examples. I could go on, but the thing is that I realized that these days it's almost like people who do, especially in grappling, not to call out a specific area of martial arts, but which grappling I think is, you know, you should do everything. If you're talking self-defense, you should do everything. But grappling is very good for self-defense in the sense that in fights people grab each other, but people, with all the sport grappling going on, it's almost like people need to just go, oh, you know, I do it for love of the sport. It doesn't matter. Self-defense doesn't matter because I just do it for the sport. But then as soon as the conversation starts, let's say someone goes, it doesn't work. It doesn't really work. Like they don't know martial arts. One of the first things that those guys will say is like, well, for self-defense it's great. Actually, I could defend myself. So there's a hypocrisy. It's almost like people are ashamed. Martial artists are ashamed to talk about self-defense these days. It's really weird. Well, not all of them, but
I mean, I don't kind of network in a circle that has that conversation, because all of my all of my stuff is self-defense. You know, we've got hundreds of affiliates around the world, and you know, some of them are like high level Krav Maga, high level jiu-jitsu. One of the guys who's on my training cadre was the British jiu-jitsu champion. He's a high level police officer. So I tell people, keep training with what you want. What I do is very special. It's about helping you get home to see your family, right? And I separate classical traditional martial arts with combat sports. I separate it with reality-based self-defense training, and I focus on what's called violent encounters. And I even look at, and people are confused by this, like why do we need to say reality-based self-defense? There's only self-defense. The word reality-based is ridiculous. We don't need to say it. It could be dropped. And that's another rabbit hole to explore, but it's not worth it. You're either teaching self-defense or you're not. And the problem is that when fighting was more structured, there was a time back in our era where if our troops were going to fight each other, you and I met in the middle of a battlefield, we talked for a minute, I go, look, dude, you should surrender, we're going to kick your ass. And you go, no, go fuck yourself, you're going to lose. And then, we might even shake hands, or I might smack you with a glove, and then we pace off with our backs to each other and then turn around and shoot. And there was another guy there in case one of us cheated to shoot us. Like, if you think about the origin of battle, it was very, very structured. Where now you got the knockout game, you got jumps, you got Antifa, you got riots, but true violence where people got fucked up was always a surprise.
Yeah.
If I go back 1,000 years and they found, somebody's head hanging in the middle of the town square, that wasn't an organized fight. That was a guy that was kidnapped and tortured and murdered. And then someone said, look, you better pay us. You know what I'm saying? Is like, we forget that true violence was always sudden, aggressive, and up close and personal. Yeah. And what I tried to do is make sense of that. And it's unfortunate that so many, there's a period online where all these well-known martial arts instructors were attacking me online like bullies. Oh, Blauer's full of shit, Blauer's this, and I'm going this guy's like a 4th degree black belt, and he's got a kid's class, and he's got parents there, and he's online, and you ask yourself, why would my messaging agitate you so much that you would actually become a fool online? Because what type of self-esteem and confidence does somebody who resorts to bullying have?
I think the problem is when people get called out on reality. What I mean by that is that, in my mind, martial artists. I want to be clear. I'm not saying that anyone who teaches I'm not saying everyone who teaches martial arts should accept challenges all the time and stuff like that. That's not what I mean. But they should really, really be open to challenging their skills. And I don't mean necessarily. So, for example, I don't know if you heard of him, Nick Drossos.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, so he did this video where he would go around the street and ask people to attack him with a marker, and he would just test his, how he would defend against the marker, pretending it was a knife. Right. So that, to me, now, whatever opinion you have of how he did it, like, everyone has an opinion, right? But the thing is that, look, he's actually testing it. That's the important part. Yes, go ahead.
But he's not.
Oh, okay.
That's the whole thing.
Go ahead.
So I don't know him. I don't know well. I know that he's studied my stuff somehow because I've seen him try to do the startle flinch and spear and I prefer people who are using aspects of my system to reference it and just like if I quote somebody, I quote them. So I saw some videos. And again, I don't know him, but what I want to point out is if I come up to you and I say, take this marker and try and cut me.
Oh yeah, now you're already prepared. Yeah, that's true.
Remember the 3 things I started with.
Yeah.
And you're also unconsciously picking certain people.
That makes sense. That would be a psychological.
Nobody picks somebody they think is going to hurt them or embarrass them.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't pick and film.
Yeah.
So let's say he had picked somebody who grabbed him by the hair, stuck the markers in his eyes twice, and then made him eat the marker.
Yeah.
Is he going to put that on TV?
I don't think so. No.
Right. And again, I'm not saying anything bad. I'm just saying I've studied predator behavior at the highest level. And I tell all my students that the bully always selects prey. The bully never selects a predator. That unconsciously, if I'm in a crowd and I'm going to ask a question to the audience, I acknowledge this in myself. My unconscious mind is not going to pick somebody who's not going to do what I think reasonably well in the demo or answer the question, because I'm now creating a show and I'm creating an experience.
Yeah, so, you won't pick the guy with the cauliflower ears and the broken nose.
Well, but he might do something like, but it's not the point. It's not the point to talk about negative. But what I want to point out, because this is, and I hesitated to bring it up, because what you were talking about is challenging our belief system, right? As an instructor. So you're saying you should be open to not physically doing challenges. That's stupid. That's dangerous. It's illegal. It's criminal. You and I can't get into a fight on purpose like this. It's illegal to fight in most normal countries. So how do you do it? So you go, oh, let's do a challenge like this. And I'm biting my tongue to continue on this because I don't want people to think that I'm putting down what Nick did. He didn't understand what he wasn't doing. He only understood what he was doing. If I say to you, Bruno, tomorrow, be in my gym at 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock, we're going to train and we're going to work on counter-ambush training, exclusively counter-ambush training. It's no longer counter-ambush training if I tell you what we're doing and at the time.
So it should be more like, I don't know if you ever saw the old movies of Inspector Clouseau.
Of course.
Where his assistant would attack him at random moments, so he would always be ready.
Cato jumps out of the closet and attacks Clouseau. and so I always make that joke. It's funny you bring that up.
Oh, really? Well, this is a coincidence. I didn't know. I didn't look it up.
No, that's great. No, it's funny that you do that.
Yeah.
The idea is this, and I tell people this: you can't practice counter-ambush training. I'm 60 years old. If I told you hide in my house and attack me, one of us is going to get fucked up.
Yeah, and also you already know I'm in the house, so you wouldn't behave the same.
But this is the thing. Like somebody, I've been saying this for 25 years now, and there was a self-defense company that said we teach real self-defense. We train you for a couple of days, whatever their program is, and then 2 weeks later we attack you somewhere.
But even then, you know
exactly. We don't tell you when and where. And
like they're not gonna act the same way.
They're attacking you wearing like a fist suit. The fist suit. You understand? Like people are like, yeah, wow. And I'm going, it's good you're training.
Yeah.
But I'm a mad scientist with this shit, right? I do tactical conferences. I do talks to chiefs of police. I do talks to government officials, all on helping them design more scientific scenario-based training, what we call the 3 R's: realistic, relevant, and rigorous, because that's the only way you stress inoculate. We need to train the emotional, psychological systems, because you can have the skills, but if you don't have the fear management skills, you can't access the skills. You can have the skills, and if you don't have the awareness that something's happening, we have a maxim: no awareness, no chance.
Yeah, I did security many years ago, and nothing fancy. I'm really talking like you're wearing the uniform, you're sitting somewhere, you're just watching that door. You know what I mean? Like nothing high level or anything. And the thing is that it's kind of interesting. There's things that I don't know, maybe you're going to tell me that it can be trained, I guess to some degree, but sometimes I really think some things you either have or you don't, and you can always train them to get better. But me, in my case, and this is going to sound funny, but I'm hyperactive. And when you say hyperactive, people think like you're acting like Jim Carrey or something. But that's not what it is. What it is that there's, well, the way I understand it, and maybe I'm not even exactly hyperactive. I don't know what I am, but what I mean is there's less filtering of between the thought and the action. And that
Okay.
doesn't mean I have awesome reflexes either. I don't. But what that does mean is that I noticed when there was stuff happening when I was doing security, I was always acting first. Everyone else was still analyzing the information. Not only that, because I was like such a nervous kid, it's kind of like you have your own way of thinking, of seeing the world. So I
Right.
really and I traveled to different countries. I'm half Spanish, so I moved a lot. It's kind of like body language changes when you go to different places, and when you see that growing up, it's kind of like you pick up on body language. That becomes a thing. And I remember this thing that happened, and I was doing security at a desk, and I just saw a guy passing by outside. So I was kind of like inside a building. There was a restaurant to my right, and this guy just passed by, and I was on call. I wasn't like always working there. I was just there that night. Like on call. So there's the people who work there all the time, and it's kind of funny how security guards think for some reason if they're there all the time, they're more qualified than the guy who came on call or something. I don't know
Right.
why. And I told him on the walkie-talkie, I'm like, okay, a guy passed by and he's gonna do something. And they go like, "What do you mean?" Like he really looked funny. Like his body language told me that he was gonna do something. And even as I said it, I was like, ah. Like when you try to tell someone his body language was wrong, like how do you explain that to someone who never discusses that, never interested? I never studied it, but it's just a thing that I picked up in my life.
Right.
And they dismissed me, of course, because yeah, I guess if I was them, like, oh, that person's body language will look wrong. Yeah, okay, whatever. And the guy started climbing a fence that led to the restaurant.
Mhm.
And I told him right away. I go out, and of course the guy on the walkie-talkie is like, "Oh, okay, wait for the person who works here, whatever, however he said it." And then this girl comes by, and she did not look like she was in any sort of shape to do anything about what was going on. And and the guy was already up, and me, I'm already. That's how my brain works. I'm already analyzing the situation, so I see that down the fence on the other side, there's all the utensils that the busboys drag. Because I was also a busboy, so I'm familiar with that like plastic thing where you put the utensils. And I'm like, okay, so if that guy lands on the other side, he already has access to like forks and knives. So that's already my thought process. I'm already thinking of that. The guy is up there, and what I do is I start talking to him, like, hey, what's going on? Like I talk to him as if it was completely normal that he's up there. And he starts telling me that he didn't get it, like he forgot his meds or some such.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, no problem, come down. Like, we'll see what we can do about it. And because I knew that the worst thing that could be done there was kind of to amp him up, like
Sure.
so
Sure.
just treat it like it's normal. And the guy ended up like jumping on the other side, so I just followed him there as the girl was still watching. So I go inside the restaurant. Now, thankfully, because I'm wearing that like awful cheesy uniform, the bouncers in the restaurant, because it's still, this restaurant is not a club, but it's at night, so they are open pretty late. They do have bouncers in suits, so they recognize me for what I am, and I point to the guy, like, stop that guy, because he was walking, and who knows what he's gonna do. So these guys are built like fridges, I guess the
Right.
expression
Right.
is, that they're huge, and I guess at that time I'm thinking like, oh, cool, they're gonna take care of it now, and I'm just following to kind of like maybe explain the situation and all that. And each of them grabs an arm, but they grab it like kind of up here, just
Mhm.
kind of to lead him out or something. And the guy starts reaching into his jacket, and they're not doing anything about it. So what I did is I went to kind of like press myself against him, and I'm like, sorry, sorry, and I'm actually apologizing to him again. I don't want to amp him up, and I put my hand over his, and I'm like, look, and that's back when I wasn't trained, by the way. So that's the whole thing. And I'm like, please, please remove your hand. I don't know what you have in your jacket, nothing personal. Can you please see your hand? And the guy removed it. Anyway, end of story to make it short, because after that, nothing significant happened. But basically, that whole event told me that, okay, most people, they don't even acknowledge body language.
Right. Did he
Then
have a weapon?
no,
Tony,
he didn't.
did he have?
Well, I don't think he did. We never searched him, but
Right.
I didn't like the idea that he was reaching into his jacket, right? Maybe he was
Sure.
scratching himself. Who knows? Maybe he was nervous.
Suspicious. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but the thing is that was interesting. The whole event taught me a lot, and basically about how other people are, I guess. So body language is something most people don't pay attention to, and that
Mhm.
will tell you a lot. If someone is about to do violence, sometimes you can just see it coming, even if he's just walking. And then a lot of people, when faced with a weird situation, that guy climbs up the fence. Most people analyze it forever.
Right.
They don't act on it. They don't look at their surroundings. Okay, what are the options? And then those bouncers who should, in theory, they're lifting weights. I don't know if they practice combat sports or not. Like if they did, who knows? But they're supposed to have their mind working on those things because that's their job.
Right.
Me, I'm kind of like, yeah, I was a security guard, but I'm kind of just supposed to watch the door. I wasn't supposed to be in that mindset, if you will. And they kind of failed to recognize the things that had to be done in that moment. And I always found that was fascinating because in theory, those guys should have been wired to think like that right away. And I really think that people don't understand these things overall.
No, I agree. So no, it's a fascinating story, and so one of the things that I've researched explains a lot of, what was going on for you. First of all, you talk about body language several times. Body language is, rounding it off, about 60% of all communication. Then your tone informs the other 30, and then the words you choose, the 10. So I could say, Bruno, I'm gonna kick your ass, man. Buddy, next time I see you, you're fucking dead, right? And I'm threatening you, but my
Yeah,
voice is quavering and I'm moving away.
yeah,
So you don't need to chase me and defend yourself, right? So, but a lot of people who get tunnel vision and freaked out, he said he was going to kick my ass, but didn't you notice that he was backing away? And when the body language is 60% of communication, and it's the number one thing we train people in our system to look for. The other thing is that, and you're right. I don't know if this can be taught to the level that you executed it, but in our program, we talk about something called the 3 I's. The 3 I's are instincts, intuition, and intelligence. Instincts are that sudden, like, I sense danger. I feel like I need to run or move, right? Intuition is, I describe it for me as like a sudden, like a voice in your head telling you something. And very often we shut that down, and it's fear or cognitive dissonance that shuts it down.
Mm-hmm.
You've probably been screwed over in business or in a personal relationship or a friendship. Everyone has.
Mm-hmm.
And after you're sitting there, you go, I knew
Yeah.
that. I knew that guy was going to do that. I knew they were going to steal that. I knew they were going to break that. I knew that.
Yeah.
But we don't listen to it because cognitive dissonance corrects it.
Mm-hmm.
Someone comes up to you and goes, man, I wouldn't go into business. No, he's a good guy. No, but I heard he's like, no, not with me. He's not going to be like that. And we because we want things to work out in any relationship, business or personal, even in self-defense, we want our relationship to work out with our sensei, with our master, with our guru. We want the skill set that we're practicing to manifest itself. And I tell people, when you're studying and you're just thinking about self-defense, just think about evidence. And evidence is CCTV. Evidence is what we capture on the iPhone that's floating around the internet. If you look at 100 examples of sudden violence, do you see martial arts being applied to correct or save the event, save the scenario? And the answer is, people will find outlier anomalies, but when you peel that onion, you realize that wasn't a real fight. I mean, they were really fighting, and I actually wrote this in 1993 after the first UFC. I was at ringside, cage side, in Denver. I interviewed Hoist, I interviewed all the fighters, Shamrock, everyone, and I wrote for 3 magazines. I wrote for American Magazine, a British magazine, an Australian magazine, and I wrote, although they're really fighting, it's not the same as a real fight. And it was in 1993 I wrote, when there's consent, preparedness, and awareness, it changes everything. You know who you're fighting. You know if there's a weight class. If there's not, you got a cup on. You got a mouth guard. We go back to Nick doing his thing. Hey, here's a marker. Try and cut me with it.
Yeah.
Right. I unconsciously select somebody. Right. And even Nick doesn't know that he does this. Right. If I said to you, pick a girl from the crowd to dance with you, your unconscious brain is selecting a girl you think is going to say yes, not a girl who's going to say, why would I dance with you?
Well, I can't use that example. I have someone,
Right?
and I want to survive.
Right?
uh,
But what I'm trying to explain to
no,
anybody,
I know, I'm joking.
I know you're teasing. What I'm trying to explain
Yes.
to anyone who's truly listening, if you're a martial arts instructor, if you're trying to become safer so you can protect yourself or your family, you need to investigate and include the behavioral sciences, because at the end of the day, on fight night, you're not a different athlete.
Yeah.
On fight night, it's all mindset. It's all mental. And it's the same thing if I'm walking to the ATM, if I'm walking down the street, if I'm jogging on a trail alone, if I have a road rage incident.
Mm-hmm.
The predator is thinking, I'm going to hit this guy. And the good Samaritan is going, look what you did to my car, man.
Yeah.
Right? This guy's thinking, if this guy doesn't apologize because I'm a bully, I'm going to hit him.
Yeah, that's the thing that happens very often. People confuse moral right, if they're right or wrong, with what's going to happen next. That is something I've observed, and like it's kind of interesting when people don't understand that. Yeah, you might be right, but that person in front of you is clearly not caring, and that
Right.
you can also apply it to like arguments that go nowhere. Like, but
anything.
yeah.
So the programming that I design for people covers this. Three, think of them as Lego blocks, interconnected blocks: detect, defuse, defend. Detect and avoid, defuse and de-escalate. If push comes to shove, defend. Each one of those is a vertical, like rabbit hole peeling of the onion. What is situational awareness? What does it mean? If I tell you, you see that happening over there, I need you to run now, I need you to hide. I'm not running, I'm not hiding. I go, so situational awareness requires the mindset of choosing safety. That's, again, one of our biggest principles in our system is we teach anybody. I don't care if he's a SWAT team member or in a class for one day be your own bodyguard class. Need to choose safety. Choosing safety should not be confused with playing it safe. Choosing safety just asks the question. So our system is brain-based Socratic. In a morally, ethically, legal society, those are the conditions that you're going to judge yourself by, as well as be judged by. Bruno, why did you do that? And now it's like, why did you punch that guy 4 times and now he died? Were you angry? Were you scared? Was he really that? So the force must parallel the danger.
Yeah.
A lot of people who teach self-defense don't understand this stuff or study this stuff.
Yeah.
So everything, the expression, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, that? It's like, so, but this is what creates the unconscious bias. So if I said, this is an interesting social experiment. If I say to a wrestler, guy's hassling you outside a bar, you had words with him, and you decide you've had enough, what are you going to do? The wrestler is not going to say, well, I'm going to do a spinning back kick. The wrestler is going to say, I'm going to double leg this guy and dump him on the ground, introduce him to a little bit of gravity.
And then his friend is going to show up with a bottle behind him.
Listen to this metaphor.
Yeah.
Because this is about neuroscience and unconscious bias. And the unconscious bias is what gets us in trouble, legally, morally, and ethically. The unconscious bias is if we only eat sushi, and that's all we eat is sushi, and we think sushi is Oriental food, and then someone says, hey, let's go out for Oriental tonight, and I take you to a Chinese restaurant, you go, what the hell's this? I go, Chinese. No. I just do sushi. Well, you said you'd come up, right? We can't have a conversation. Now we're having an argument. This is a little bit of what you're alluding to in the beginning, where everyone thinks self-defense, but they're just doing sushi. They're not thinking about the big umbrella, the emotional, the psychological, the physical, detect, diffuse, defend, the legal, the tactical, the medical. you're in a knife fight with somebody and you practice scream on Cali and you're good at knife fighting, but he got the jump on you, slashed you, you disarm and everything, and you realize, oh shit, I'm cut, I'm bleeding bad, but I don't know how to put on a tourniquet. And I die, even though I had the skills to defend myself. Like the whole gamut of self-defense isn't just, can you punch somebody in the face? But I want to go back to something more important. If all I practice is boxing, and I go up to you and I go, in 5 minutes, a guy's going to come up to you, he's going to try and hask you, he's going to strong arm rob you. That means no weapons, he's give me your fucking money, right? Give me your money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What are you going to do? Well, I'm a fucking boxer, I'm going to light this guy up. I'm going to go, hey man, boom, body shot, hook punch, he's down. I go, okay, Taekwondo guy. 5 minutes, guy's going to come up, he's going to strong arm you.
I don't know how to respond to that.
Thank you, Siri. I asked this to the Taekwondo guy. The Taekwondo guy is not going to go, I'm going to double leg him and
no.
turn over and rear strangle.
Yeah.
No, the Taekwondo guy is going to say, oh, I'm going to keep my distance, push back, and might be able to do a push front kick into a side kick or back kick or round kick or whatever. Do you understand? If I did every single art, every art creates an unconscious bias.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you practice a certain way over and over again, you're training your neurons to fire a certain way. Then you're training your brain to look for certain things to allow those neurons to fire.
Okay.
Right? And so, I tell this amazing story. It was a military group that I was training with, and all of them box, MMA, street fighter, but they were all like, I can't mention the group and I can't mention the name, but they were very high level, tier 1 military. And one guy in the demo, we're doing stuff with our high gear suit. We're doing stuff with long gun, machine gun, muzzle strike the guy. The role player gets hit, slams the gun. He comes in to tackle the guy, and the guy's supposed to, at that point, because he's got a pistol, he's got his gun, he's got his kit on, is use the S.P.E.A.R system, which is when I go, shit, I flinch, I then drive my fingers outside 90, my arms outside 90, my fingers are splayed. This unlocks a core to extremity contraction. It's the strongest frame you can have. This isn't it, and this isn't it. It's this middle ground, and you can do it off of a long gun, you could do it off of a pistol, and you could do it off of empty hand, right? But it happens, it's like the airbag deploys, shit, I drive out, this stops and stalls the attack, and then from there, I'm either grabbing the head, punching the head, palm striking the head, reaching for a knife, reaching for a gun. It depends on the scenario, who you are, right? Mm-hmm. I could teach that move to an MMA fighter. He's not reaching for a gun. It's what's the scenario? He's in an octagon, right? Yeah. So I had this one guy. So the move was when the role player tackles you, you're going to hit the half spear, drive him away, immediately transition to your pistol, cover the door, and then drive in and then pump a knee or drop an elbow over him and then come back. It was a scenario that we were doing. Everyone's doing the scenario except this one guy. When the guy went to tackle him, he let the guy come in and he went for a guillotine. Now, yeah. And this guy was world class. He had fought in Abu Dhabi, world class. But he went for the guillotine. And I went up to him and I said, don't do the guillotine. You're very fast, you're very smooth. But if I go to tackle you and you shoot in and I do a guillotine, it's going to, if I'm strong enough, it's going to force us to go to the ground. You'll pull guard, maybe you tap me out. But this is a military scenario. I want you on your feet. You got 60 pounds of gear. If I hook up under here, if I go to the ground with all this equipment on my back, I might have a big problem. If I have my hands free, I've got a better chance of driving my axis towards the threat, but now I can get access to my other equipment.
And block the door, because you mentioned the door had to be locked. So this whole time I was thinking, how do you block the door if you're doing a guillotine? You know, like that. Right. That didn't.
And you got other threats and other people are moving and stuff like that. Like it's
or the guy you're doing the guillotine to, if he has a knife or a gun, it's over for you. It's,
right. Yeah. So the idea is in a real violent encounter, the real thing is to always do what's best for the scenario, which goes back to our choose safety model. What is the safest thing I could do here? Is the safest thing to try and stay on my feet and stop the threat on my feet? Or is my safest thing to force the fight to the ground right away? If the guy's skilled enough to force you to the ground, you better hope you got some ground skills, right? So I always tell people, you want to be well versed and diverse, but you need to understand the architecture of violence. What's the scenario? If you're a good grappler and he's a good grappler and you think you're a better grappler and you're fighting in an MMA fight, you know, and you guys are dancing around and then finally he shoots in, you go, let's take that as ground. That's the choice move there.
Yeah, and that's interesting because, you know, like what you're saying reminds me of this thought experiment I had before. And, you know, like we all know who the current champions are in MMA, but I really have this belief that if MMA worked differently, if it was you're going to show up to fight and you don't know who you're fighting that night, even with the same weight classes, same competitors,
Right.
I really believe we wouldn't have the same champions because so much of the game is also preparing for the guy you know you're going to be fighting. So,
and you see that very often in last minute replacements. Someone gets injured and someone comes in.
Tony Ferguson and Justin Gaethje, that was the prime example for Ferguson preparing for a grappler for the longest time, and then he faces Justin Gaethje, who was, you know, like his boxing is all of this world for MMA at least.
Yeah. No. So the moral of the story that I was telling with the guillotine guy is I went up to him and I said, hey, don't do the guillotine. It's not as safe as what I'm showing you. I want you to choose safety here because you've got other teammates in here. If you go to the ground, now they got to worry about you. You can't cover that door. Someone else can come in. And I want everyone listening to this is like a military scenario. Mm-hmm. He goes, okay, got it. I go back to the side. I'm watching. He does the guillotine again. I sent my instructors over and I see him going, but he's not arrogant. He's like, yeah, okay, I got it. And he does the guillotine again. And then I realized this. You know the term muscle memory. Well, muscle memory doesn't exist. It's the myelinization of a neurotransmitter, and this is what I'm talking about. Muscles don't have memory.
Yeah.
Your mind has a memory of what it's supposed to do. It's got a protocol. That's what I said earlier, that if my favorite move is a lead uppercut, and you come up to mug me, and I'm standing left side forward, and I'm a southpaw, my body naturally, when I see you come up, goes, "What's up, man?" Mm-hmm. Because I want to go. I want to fire that shot.
Yeah.
If I'm here hanging out like this, and I love front kicks, and you come up to me, my body naturally goes, "Yeah, I don't want any trouble, man. I'm ready to fire. I'm ready to fire the kick." Yeah. You know, our body unconsciously positions ourselves to the range of combat we are most comfortable with. And so your unconscious bias actually compromises the totality of situational awareness. This is a very heavy concept because situational awareness requires that I read what's going on based on where I am at the moment I read it, just like when you were telling your story. Mm-hmm. Your situational awareness and your intuition was, he's reaching into his pocket and nobody's doing anything. What the hell is that? You charge in to save the day going, these guys are supposed to be trained. Why aren't they? They don't even notice that. Holy shit. But, you know, I said earlier, 3 I's, instincts, intuition, intelligence. You trusted your instincts, you listened to your intuition, and then the intelligent thing to do is choose safety. You weren't going to wait and see if he's going to pull out a gun or knife and then know you could have stopped it.
Yeah.
You didn't do anything.
People are always second guessing themselves, and it's a. I actually use it one time in a situation where it's kind of funny because the previous guest I had, Tim Daly, amateur MMA fighter, and we kind of got into self-defense, and I already knew you were my next guest, and I thought it was kind of ironic that we got into that before my episode with you. But there's one time where basically I had to defend some women from some bullies who were really into fitness, let's say, and that they thought that made them tough guys. And now I'm repeating my stories, I guess, but as one guy was in front of me, another one tried to come from behind. And what I did was I just pointed at him and started laughing. Hey, don't cheat. Go on one at a time. You know, and it felt like the stupidest thing ever, right? It shouldn't have worked, but it did. Because it made him insecure. He second-guessed himself. He obviously wasn't trained.
That's great.
Yeah, and it worked. Like, it didn't rush.
I'll tell you a couple of examples you give. You're very, very intuitive. And it's impressive, but the most important thing is you go with it what you're doing is you're trusting your instincts and your intuition, and now you're making intelligent choices. The you know, to try and compete with you, I'm gonna share an example.
You win.
I was at a seminar 15 years ago, and it was a knife defense seminar, and the host had forgotten all the training blades, so he had to drive back out. He was going to be half an hour late. So I said, guys, while we're waiting, we don't have any props, and we always use training weapons. I said, let's just talk about the science and psychology stuff. And we're like in a circle. There's like 20 people, and we're all in a circle, and everyone's in the circle. And I'm talking to guys, and I see this one guy, and the circle's like this. I see this one guy standing there like this, and he goes, and I notice it. He's the only guy that puts his hands up. Everyone else is like engaged like this. And he goes like this. He does this, and then he starts looking around. He's looking at people, and he does this. He starts slowly turning like this. And I'm back. You know, I'm moving here for the video to make it dramatic. I'm back like 15 feet from him at this point. He's here, big semicircle. We're talking, and he goes like this. And I'm watching him out of the corner of my eye. I'm talking to guys, and I'm noticing this, and my heart starts to race because I'm going, this guy's gonna fucking pull a knife. Holy shit. Why is my heart racing? Because I'm not a bullshitter. Because here I am. Why would you want to be in a knife or a gunfight or a real fight? If you're a conscientious, good Samaritan, you don't ever want to be in a fight. I abhor violence, which is why I study it, because I want my mission. When I was 20, I got asked what I want to do. I said, I want to help make the world safer. And I haven't stopped doing that. The research, I try to put it out there. But the end of the story, just like your story with, hey, no cheating, right?
Yeah.
What you did is you shine. I always tell people, bad guys don't want to get caught, they don't want to get hurt, they want things to take too long. If you shine a spotlight on a predator before he's ready to sucker punch, right? So he'd have walked up to you and whack, grabbed you and sucker punched you or bear hugged you. When you turned and you did that, he was like, how the fuck did this guy know I was there?
Yeah.
He didn't know that, maybe there was a reflection or your peripheral vision or whatever. So I'm here like this, like 12 feet away, 15 feet away, and I see this guy blade like this, and his hands gesturing back, and I'm going, fuck. But then what I did is I went into what I knew I had to do. And I stopped, and I looked at the guy I was explaining something to, I go, everybody stop. And I'm doing this, so pretend you're the bad guy at the back. I go like this. I'm not even looking, because it's a circle. I see him in my peripheral vision, right? And I go, everyone stop. Nobody move. And I go, sir. And I point without looking at him.
Yeah.
And I go, do you have a question for me? And he goes, me? I go, yeah. Do you have a question? And then I look at him. He goes, no. And he's standing there like this.
Uh-huh.
So you sure you don't have a question? Because your body language sure says you have a question.
Yeah.
He goes, well, I've got a knife in your pocket. He goes, yeah. I go, what's your question? He goes, well, what would you do if I pulled it out now? I go, well, I said, how often do you practice throwing that exact knife? He goes, I don't. I said, well, I wouldn't do anything because we're like 15 feet away. Do you have another question? And he was like, now, listen, I'm sharing that story to explain what I did there is I detected and avoided and diffused and de-escalated, and I didn't have to defend myself, thankfully. There are a lot of people that get fucked up in a knife fight because a knife is a very dangerous weapon, right? And so I'm not explaining this to be cavalier. It's kind of a lame story. It's stupid. But what it's explaining is how important the emotional, psychological presence is, how important situational awareness is, but also to trust your gut and your instincts, your intuition.
Yes. Because our brains work well on many levels. And this is going to sound like the silliest example ever, but again, back in the day when I was a security guard, I was working in this museum at night. And I had like this huge set of keys with countless doors, and every door used different keys, and some of them you had to turn left, others right, other ones it didn't matter. And I was reading this again, silly example, but I was reading this sci-fi novel called Blindside, and it kind of talked about the fact that there's parts of the brain that do the job, and the conscious self thinks it did the job, but that's not the part that did
Right.
the work. So reading that, I kind of got really into it, into that concept of okay, maybe like this whole being aware of oneself blocks out other parts of the brain that are doing very important work. And what I started doing, and this is kind of when I would go to the doors, and it was at night, and I'm kind of like I'm tired, and every time I would think about, oh, which key is it now, I would fumble and look for it in the wrong direction. Okay, if I didn't think about it, if
Mm-hmm.
I just went into this mode where I wasn't thinking about which keys, and I just went into this kind of like mode, I would always choose the right key, and I would always turn the right way. And as soon as I started thinking about it, I would be like, oh wait,
Yeah.
which one was
Isn't
it?
that cool?
It is very cool, and that's what people get in their own way. They get in
It's
yeah,
the three eyes. The
yeah.
magic connector is intuition. It's knowing without knowing why you know,
Mm,
and trusting that.
yeah.
The downside is you explore and experiment. If you do it the other way, it doesn't matter. But it's one of our guiding principles in our whole methodology. I don't teach people how to fight. I teach them how to not fight.
Mhm.
Right? That's self-defense, avoidance.
Yeah.
If a credible violent encounter is one that you doing nothing turns out way worse than you doing something,
Mhm.
right? So there's lots of stuff we can walk away from. There's but it takes courage to walk away, because now it's our ego and our pride that's going, you're a pussy, you should have done something.
Yeah.
Okay. So self-defense can and should be way more holistic, and I hope the people that are listening, I don't know your demographics, but I will say this, I don't know if I ever finished my airbag metaphor, but your car represents your martial art, and you represent, and the driver of that car represents either you and your skill set, or the person who's the highest exponent of that art. And they're in their car and they're waiting at a light, and they're really good drivers, and they got, a souped up Camaro, or they've got a Ferrari, or whatever car represents the physique they want. At that moment, at the intersection, when a truck comes through the intersection and its brakes went out of it and it skids and hits everybody, does your driving skill make a difference? No.
No.
Does the car make a difference? Like how you tuned it, like the brakes, the torque,
No.
the tires, nothing, right? And obviously, if you're in a Prius versus a Ford Raptor, the size of your body. But
Yeah.
let's not be a contrarian and screw up the metaphor.
Yeah.
What's going to save you in the accident is whether your airbag deploys, not your skill and not your car. Did the airbag deploy in the metaphor? And so I can be in a jiu-jitsu car, I can be in a taekwondo car, I can be in a Lethway car, I can be in a boxing car. We're all sitting there, and all of a sudden a car drives into us.
Yeah.
And the metaphor here is the car hitting us, where I go, fuck, and I flinch, and the airbag deploys. What stops that steering column from crushing my sternum and killing me or maiming me is my airbag. And so what I do with the S.P.E.A.R system is I help people reconnect to their airbag, as if in the metaphor I go, Bruno, you've never thought about this, but let me explain to you how this startle flinch can be weaponized to protect yourself or your family, and it can be used. There's tactical applications if you decide as security or as a courageous bystander, or because you're a cop or a military or a firefighter or whatever, that you need to move towards a threat, how to do that. And that's really the mission of our training system, is to reinstall the airbag in the general public that's been all but domesticated from violence. We haven't had to protect ourselves, or to augment a skill set for somebody who doesn't realize. And everyone listening to this, I say this with super deep respect for all martial artists. This is just neuroscience. This isn't Tony Blauer. Tony's drunk. He's blah 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 blah. It's neuroscience. That's why I told you that military story. That's why I say, if I ask a guy who's a knife fighter What'd you do if a guy tried to do this? You go, well, that's why I carry a blade. If I ask a guy who carry, you look, anytime there's an active shooter situation, what does everybody who carries a gun answer? They don't talk about situational awareness. They don't talk about threat discrimination. They don't talk about backdrop and be careful about this.
Mhm.
And they go, that's why I carry.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean they would have been ready. Like,
But
it's
it's not even that.
yeah,
It's not, you know, one of my trainers is a cop. You know,
yeah,
when the Colorado shooting happened, where the guy started shooting up you know, the movie theater in Colorado, where the
yeah,
Batman movie you know, The Dark Knight opened,
yeah. I remember. Yeah,
right? And everyone's going, that's why I carry. I go, listen,
Dark Knight Rises. Yeah.
I said, if you were in the back of the theater with a gun and you're at the movie theater with your wife and your two kids, your obligation is to protect your family. That's what your symbiotic bodyguard's going to do. You're going to grab them and move them and usher them out. And if you got somebody with smoke and fucking opening fire in a theater with 500 people, and you're in the middle or the back row and you don't know where shit's coming from, you're not drawing your weapon and shooting. It's ridiculous. So when
Yeah.
people say things, that's why I carry, I go, like, I want to pull my fucking hair out. I go,
Yeah, or that notion that because they carry, they do not need to be in shape or learn any self-defense, or like it's you know, and if really, like really, you're the quickest draw in the West. Like if someone comes to you and headbutts you, your gun is already gonna be in your hand. I don't think so. You know, like it's just
it's bigger than that, and I hope our talk explained that there needs to be, you know, let me start to wrap this up with a story, and I'll answer a couple of questions. And if we want to do another show, I just have like a bunch of meetings coming up. But I was teaching in Montreal back in the day. I used to live in Montreal. I live in beautiful California right now. And there's a guy at one of my seminars, and I was talking about situational awareness and sucker punches and so on and so forth. And this guy, I said, so I go, where's the first place you're hit, guys? And there's always one joker in the class that goes, in the face. I go, yeah, usually that's the most common attack, is a boom, shot to the head. But guess what? Every victim of violence who lived to tell the tale said they had a bad feeling before that attack.
mm-hmm.
Everyone always said, man, I knew something was wrong. But they don't have the courage or the software to figure it out. And this is like you saying, like, the people just stand there overthinking. So anyways, so I explained the protocol: detect, diffuse, defend. I explained that self-awareness informs situational awareness, that if you don't realize that you're prejudiced, that you're overconfident, that you're insecure, that you're an asshole, you know, or whatever your affliction is, you don't realize that that's part of the cause that attracts violence to you. Because you know, you go, like, every time I go to this bar, I get in a fight. I go, why do you go to that bar? Right?
There
like,
you go.
you got blinders on. You have no self-awareness to realize it's you and that bar, right?
Yeah.
If you need a drink, go to another bar, right? If you need a drink too badly, maybe you got to go to a meeting. I don't know, but so I'm explaining all this, and it's a real cerebral discussion, right? Before we're going to get into some drills. And this guy puts his hand up and he goes, Coach Blauer, I'm not being a contrarian, so like, I agree with what you're saying, but I was once sucker punched in the back of the head by a guy I didn't know. So you talk about like the victims have a bad feel, but he hit me from behind. I was at this bar and I was sitting like this, and he sucker punched me from behind, and I mean, I had no chance.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, well, you kind of just ruined my theory if you're just like the guy that, like, I go, but here's the thing, is like, most people won't just randomly punch somebody at a bar for no reason. I said, so there's no backstory? Because usually there's a backstory. And he looks at me and he goes, no. I said, you didn't know him? He goes, no, not at all. You'd never seen him before. And he doesn't answer right away. I go, you seen him or you had seen him? He goes, well, I said, I don't know the guy, but like the week before at the same bar? He goes, yeah. I go, so the week before at the same bar, continue with the story, and there's like 25 people in the class listening to me dissect this. Yeah. He goes, so yeah, we kind of had words, but I thought it was done. I said, so the week before you had words with this guy at a bar, and then you went back to the same bar, and then you sat with your back exposed. He goes, well, when you put it that way, I go, my friend, you had 7 days to prepare for that punch. How, how fucking slow are you if you can't block a punch that gave you 7 days? Like
Oh man,
that's supposed. Like,
yeah, yeah, I love that story. I love that story.
isn't that
It's
funny?
because it's again, people just second guess themselves. They don't trust themselves. And not only that, you know what I was saying earlier about the moral right. But you think if they're morally right, that's where the story ends.
Right.
So the guy, oh, the argument was over. It doesn't mean people will work like that. People are not fair in life. They're not fair. They should be, but they're not. And also, the way you said he was sitting like this at the bar.
Well, he's sitting like at a table with his back exposed, whatever.
Yeah, no. In public places, I have this thing where I really like to not have my back to a door. But also, if I'm in a bar, I do have a tendency to be the guy who it looks kind of. I guess it looks kind of douchey, but it's not. I don't do it to try to look cool. I kind of like lean with my shoulder, with my elbows, so I can kind of
Okay.
see
No, no,
around.
that's
You
anybody that has any tactical imperative, that
yeah,
has situational awareness, always likes to face potential threats.
yeah.
You know, and some people will say, "Oh, you're paranoid," and you go, "No, you're prepared." Paranoid, but paranoid
Yeah,
is you wouldn't go to the bar.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Prepared is I'm going to go to the bar, and I'm just, rather than have my back to the door, I'm going to find a place where I can watch the door.
The amount of times I've told people in a restaurant, for example, we're with a bunch of friends, we're at a restaurant, and they all leave their cell phones on the table. Okay, fine enough, but they leave them on the edge of the table, and they're not even looking at it. And I'm
Right.
like, man, don't leave it there. Like, why do you think
That's
someone's
a
gonna steal it?
$1,000 computer.
Yeah, and I do know someone like eventually their phone was stolen.
Yep.
Eh, It's kind of like one of those funny things where like everyone thinks you're deluded up until it happens. Like and it's
Well,
and
that
I
goes
get
back.
it.
That goes back to the true safety thing.
Yeah.
I just posted yesterday on my Instagram um, a picture years ago. I went to go meet my wife, and I posted this picture. And I don't know if people can see it. You
Well,
post.
to describe it, because I saw the post the other day to describe
Yeah,
it, she's
but if you read
sitting.
it,
Well, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
it's if you read it, it's a post about situational awareness, but she's in a very safe area, Solana Beach. She's at a Starbucks. There's people all around there, but if I zoom in on it, you know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
zoom in, her purse is on the back of the chair, and if you look behind her in the shadows, I can't. It's not opening. But you can go to my Instagram. In the shadows, there's a guy sitting there on the phone in the shadows. You know, is he just talking to his buddies, or is he getting ready for a snatch and run, or is it worse and more nefarious? So the idea is like nothing happened. I showed up. I see it. I snapped this picture. I show her the picture. I go, why is your purse on the back of the chair?
Yeah.
And like I'm looking at it right now. Like, why can't it be on your lap? Why can't it be on the floor? Why can't it be on the chair in front of you, under the table, near you? I mean, it's just accepting that there are people that steal shit. There are people that hit people. There are people that kidnap people. There's
It's and I get it because people who don't think like that necessarily, they kind of find it annoying when it's almost like my mind already works like that for some reason. I don't even know why, but it just does. And I'm always like, I know, like if someone gets in my face, I'm already looking like, okay, what are my choices here? Like it's kind of like how I think if people leave their cell phone on the edge, and I think I understand that for people who don't think that way, it's almost like I'm always nitpicking their life choices, like just how they sat, or like it's almost like.
maybe you are. Maybe you are.
Yeah, well,
Listen, if it's somebody you care about, like my kids will do that. We'll be out at a table and their phone, it's like on the bench on the armrest. They just put it there. I go like, put it in your purse and zip up your purse.
yeah.
Oh, Dad, come on. Yeah, I bought your phone. If somebody steals it, I got to buy another one. So do me a favor, but we nag them. Anyways, better. That's the whole true safety thing, man. Just it doesn't cost. I ask people when we discuss true safety as an overarching philosophy in life. What will it cost you to choose safety? If I say to you, your phone's on the edge of the table, you can't really see it because you're engaged in a conversation there, what will it cost you to move the phone so it's in front or put it on your lap or in your pocket? It'll cost you nothing. And what will it cost you if you don't? Could cost you your phone.
Yeah. Yeah,
Right?
it's exactly. It's kind of like you said, like being paranoid would be not going to the bar at all. It's just, but it's like putting the seatbelt when you go into your car. Like it's not going to stop you from getting to your destination. So why wouldn't you put this? And that's something I always explain, you know. And I have a friend, and that would piss me off so much when he would say something like that. At some point, I was there, and we were me, him, and a friend who was a girl, and I'm like, it was late. I'm like, did we lock the door? And I went to check, and his attitude was like, it's fine, we're here. Like, cause he's just thinking of like stuff that could get stolen. I'm like, yeah, because we're here. It's even more important that I check that the door is locked.
Right.
You know?
That's good. So you really trust your intuition, and it's exactly how I you know, if I didn't know better, I would say you were a student of the system. But why my system works is because I'm asking people to do things that are naturally organic opportunities.
Yeah.
You know, like wondering if you lock the door or not isn't like a weird skill set. And then checking it isn't like I need a graduate degree in something to go check it.
Yeah.
So people are just fundamentally lazy or cognitive dissonance or selfish. They're like really onto the next dopamine hit in their life. Turn on the TV, check the door. I don't want to miss the beginning of the show.
They don't think something can happen. It's what I've noticed is people don't think anything will ever happen up until it does. And it's again, an example I gave in other episodes, but you know, at my job with coworkers, and like, what do you do that? Like getting punched, like choking, like all of that. It's so weird. And then they might come to work, and I'm the first person they go see, and they're like, oh, there's a ruler person in the subway, and I was thinking, I really wish Bruno was here. And I'm like, okay, so maybe maybe there's value to my way of thinking.
There's an expression we use that a friend of mine shared, and we modified it a little bit. He says, you don't need to know how to defend yourself until the moment you need to know how to defend yourself.
Exactly.
You don't need to practice safety. You don't need to put a seatbelt on until you're in a car accident, and then it's too late. You don't need a fire extinguisher in your house until you have a small fire in your kitchen that you can't stop, and then you lost your home. Hopefully nobody's hurt, and all your property, and then you find out you didn't have enough coverage. And this all could have been stopped by buying, you know, going to Costco or Walmart and getting a couple of, you know, $20 fire extinguishers, or I don't know what they cost. Right?
Yeah. No, it's not expensive at all. Anyone can afford that. It's a mindset thing. It's really, people are so safe. We live in a society that is so safe that, and yet, how can I put this? Even living in a safe place, you know, like in your whole life, for sure, it's going to be at least one moment, probably more, but at least one moment where you'll be in danger. If you're not even ready for that one moment, that's it. It's just this concept that's hard to explain to people for some reason, and people who don't like to, and I think it's just regarding what they like or don't like to do. I guess if I'm someone who likes to do martial arts and combat sports, it's easy for me to also preach this story. But let's say what I like to do is not move at all. Maybe my mind would go into reasons why it's not needed.
Yeah, listen, and that's why, you know, we've got long programs. We've got our garage gym where people can train with me 4 times a week, live, virtually, like this. They're a blast. But we have one-day courses too. I put together a course called Be Your Own Bodyguard, because there's a huge amount of the population that would like to know some of the stuff, but maybe in the back of their mind, they're going, you know, I don't really want to grapple with somebody on a mat. I don't want to get kicked in the head. I don't want to wait 5 years and get a black belt. Like, it just, they're, you know, can't I just know what to do? And so we actually put a course together that's designed with the same efficiency and intelligence of a first aid course. In other words, you can take an EMS course taught by EMS firefighter, 4, 5, 6 hours, learn how to put on a tourniquet, learn how to stop the bleed, learn how to do mouth-to-mouth CPR, some basic stuff. And at the end of that day, you have life-saving skills. So we designed in that model a one-day course. What is detect? What is diffuse? What is defend? What are verbal de-escalation strategies? what do bad guys want? If you know that and you trust your intuition, you walk into a place, you get a bad vibe. How do you tell yourself you need to get out of here? You know what I mean? Listen, I've been studying violence for 40 years, 43 years to be exact. I travel a ton. Do you know how many times I've left a restaurant or a bar or a club? I have no idea how many times. I walk in, I get a bad vibe, I leave. If I'm on the road somewhere and I just want to go grab a beer or get a burger after something, there's another place. I make this joke. I put out 2 ATM videos. I don't know if you have show notes, you can put stuff in there. I put out 2 ATM videos, safety to ATM. My second one, I said, the biggest mistake people make when they go to take money out of the ATM is they pick the wrong ATM.
Oh, okay. I was going to say they cocoon in the ATM because they don't want people to see the screen, but they don't see what's around them. Yeah.
But the reality is you're in a rush to get money because you're late for a movie or dinner. And I ask the questions, before you go to this ATM, ask yourself, if you were a robber, would this be a good ATM for you? Where is it, on the side of a building, or is it an exposed area? Is there a quick getaway for people? Is there an alley nearby? Some ATMs look like they were designed by robbers. Let's stick one over here, dark corner over here, right? Yeah. So, but look what I'm doing is I'm not teaching people gun disarm, nice disarm, right? So if I go ATM safety, you think immediately gun disarm, nice disarm. I go, no. ATM safety. Don't fucking use that ATM. Drive to another one. But I share that stuff. Look how safe, 1,000 people might listen to your show who just got safer because they go,
the reverse of it is also true. I always said, and this is something that's always touchy because at some point I was at this gathering. It was someone's birthday, I think. Anyway, and I talked to this girl, and she did some self-defense for a while, some martial art. That what she was telling me, and we're gonna make it quick because I know you have to go soon. So what she was telling me, I could tell was not proper training. And to make it short, I'm not gonna go into details. I just knew that she hadn't learned any actual efficient techniques. And she was really deluded about, and she was really skinny, and she was deluded about being able to break an arm because apparently this piece of wood is like the same consistency as a bone. Yeah, but there's no muscle on it. There's no movement. So the thing
there's no fear and anxiety in the practitioner.
And I was thinking, this girl, that was the problem. There you go. That was the problem. This girl was less safe for having done that than a woman who had not trained at all would be more afraid and therefore more careful. But a woman who has trained in something that's not actually practical, anyone, I don't know, not just a woman, anyone who has trained in something that's not practical and thinks it works will not behave fearfully enough then. The person is more in danger for having learned something that doesn't work. Anyway. Yeah.
I agree. No, that's a great point. It's the narrative. It's the stuff we believe, right? And I tell people to come back to the example I gave before about the unconscious bias and the myelinization of the neurotransmitter, which explains what we think is muscle memory. Like, he threw a punch and I went right under that and I took him down. Well, that's all the training that set up a program in your brain to see a pattern of movement and then insert a move. But you also need to step back and be situationally aware and go, is that the smartest thing I should do right now? Is this the time that I should be blasting the person in the face and running towards that exit? Or is it okay to take him to the ground? So I just ask people, so I go, listen, weather the ambush. And then we have a maxim: until you're emotionally and psychologically in control of yourself and physically dominating your threat, don't commit to a complex motor skill. The complex motor skills are, okay, I'm gonna underhook here and then hook the guy up here. Okay, I'm gonna grab the guy here and fucking pull him down here. No, you know what? I'm gonna do the gable grip on this guy. No, we start thinking complex motor skill. Oh, he's got a knife. I'll get my thumb on his third metacarpal bone, drive back towards his elbow. All of those moves work, but you've got to overcome the fear spike and recalibrate your cognitive brain. In a high stress situation, your reptilian brain hijacks executive function. The amygdala, the limbic system, the reptilian brain goes, fuck, microflinch. In that moment, it's almost like a little glitch in the system, a glitch in your matrix, right? Yeah. And now, but we need to recalibrate. Our cognitive brain has to catch up to what's happening. So I tell people, like, situational awareness, head on a swivel. But if it was as simple as that, then nobody would ever get ambushed.
Yeah, and you know what you're saying also reminds me. Bas Rutten once said that when he teaches people to do their attacks, he teaches them to exaggerate the movement because once they're in the stress of an actual fight, they're going to be stiffer. And that actually happened to me. That actually happened to me where one time I did try to in the those again that same story with the two dudes. One of them tried to punch me. I tried to kick him between the legs, so to speak. And last time when I described the story, I kind of made it funny. I was drunk and I was wearing jeans, so I kicked him inside the thigh instead. But the more complex reality is also I was stiffer than it would have been if I was sparring. Like my whole body was more stiff. So when I threw that kick, it's almost like I made the same movement that I thought I normally would make, but it
Right.
was just little bit less solid. Like
Well, you're
uh,
tense. You know, when you're
yeah,
flinching,
exactly.
scared, you
So I
tighten.
kicked the inside of the leg instead of between the legs. That's what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Tony. Listen,
It was a good
taking a lot
conversation.
of your time.
I had a lot of fun, man. I'd love to talk more, but man, I think we're like an hour and a half in already.
Well, you're always welcome to come back if you want.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
there's good feedback from your audience, I enjoy talking to you. If there's good feedback from the audience and they got specific questions, or you want to do a show where this is more getting to know me and my philosophy. But if you want to do a show more on the science and psychology behind the S.P.E.A.R system, or high gear, or scenario training,
I really wanted to get into the gear, but we're out of time. But the gear, I'm still fascinated by it, really.
it's neat. And listen, we've had from Randy Couture to Uriah Faber to BJ Penn to like the world's best have used the gear and integrated it for MMA, but it was designed for scenario-based training where you can pressure test does this work. It's modular, it's expensive because it's handmade in the USA, and the it's modular, which means like if you were practicing just headbutting, you could buy or just use two helmets. So you can just buy components and slowly build the whole suit.
Yeah, and I saw Dave Leduc was looking into possibly
Yeah,
using the helmets for
yeah.
amateur let way if that ever comes to pass, which is that's a cool option for amateur fights for sure.
Well, it's important to be able to evaluate stuff. You don't also want your body to take unnecessary punishment. And with impact reduction gear, which means if I punch you to the body with the suit, you still feel it. So as a role player, you go, wow, like that would have stung. So you can still develop your power and speed.
I really wish we had more time because that reminded me of something that happened to me in training as well. They just
Make a list of questions and
yeah,
let's set up another call because I got to roll.
sure, for sure, man. Okay, Tony, thank you very much.
Anything else? Any final thing you need from me? You got my website. If people want to follow me online, I'm on Instagram and Facebook and all that. If anyone has any questions, just hit me up. I don't outsource my social media, so if you're got an innocent, legit question and you post it, I'll answer it. I don't hire people to go through my stuff. It's like a second full-time job answering social media, but I do it. I enjoy connecting, and like I said, I'm been doing this for 43 years. I turned 60 in May. I'm still as passionate as I ever was, and there's lots of ways to get more information on this. And everyone who trains with me has another martial art background, right? Because I don't have a school that teaches, like spear tadpole and spear minnow and spear, it's making you safer by adding in self-defense research on emotional, psychological, physical, de-escalation, fear management. It's crazy. Do research my research, and that's my only guidance.
Man, I could have done this for hours. Listen, Tony, thank you very much for
We'll
coming.
do another one. I enjoyed it too. It was fun.
Really
Yeah,
awesome. I'll take you up on that offer for sure.
for sure.
Thank you very
Thanks.
much for
Safe,
coming.
man.
Thank you.